Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
Let's get it together, Chaos Kids. I'm Naomi.
I'm Amber, and this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Yay!
Hi, good morning. Yes,
Oh,
again,
God.
it's a weekend. It's a weekend morning. It's Crime, Coffee, and Chaos. Well, at least one of us has coffee. I don't know.
I
You
don't
need to
have
get
my
it together too. I mean, not
What
just the
the
Chaos Kids. What is
fuck?
going on?
Thank you for asking. I've been sick all week, and actually, you know what? We recorded just in time last week because the next day I woke up without a voice, and I've never had that happen where I actually had no talking voice. I felt like Ariel for like 2 days.
Oh my God, that's crazy pants. I don't think I've ever had that
Mhm.
happen. Maybe once or twice I've lost my voice, but
Oh
that's,
my God.
yeah, it's really unnerving, right?
It is unnerving. And the weird thing was I wasn't in a lot of pain. Like my throat wasn't hurting a lot. My voice was just gone. And I was
That's
like, what is
strange.
happening?
That's really strange.
Yeah. I've had a nasty head cold, and now, I'm not, I have some sort of mutant virus. Now I'm nauseous, which is why I don't have coffee, but I'm also
Oh.
tired and need coffee.
Sister.
It's just
Oh
I'm a
my
shit hot mess
God,
this
you
week.
are. I am so
Mhm.
sorry to hear that.
Oh, it's okay. It's been a week.
I guess.
Yeah. What about you?
I mean, it's crazy pants. A lot going on at work. I think I would say the highlight of my week was probably one of the most incredible gifts anyone has ever given me of all time in my entire life. This
Whoa.
week. Hey,
What was that?
do you remember when Time Life had books and they used to sell them on the TV, like
Yeah.
commercials for them? And there was a
Uh-huh.
series when we were kids called Mysteries of the Unknown.
Yes. Yes.
One of my dearest friends actually gifted me the entire series of Mysteries of the Unknown.
No.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
God. Are you kidding?
No, it's incredible.
I fucking love that for
It's
you.
so awesome.
Oh, wow. What a nice friend.
I know. Yes, a very nice friend. One of the nicest. So that was my big win this week.
That is a win.
Turns
That is
out
a
I
win.
got
Good
the
for you.
coolest gift and I have the coolest friends. So,
Oh, good for you, sister.
Yeah.
You deserve both.
hey, thanks.
I love all that.
Hey, before we get into it, I just want to say, Chaos Kids, are you in the
Uh-huh.
club? Because you got to be in the club if you want to hear the bonus content. And we'd really like to schedule a virtual night with you. And we can't do that
Yes.
until there's at least 10 of you. So go on over to the Patreon, forgo one avocado toast a month.
Oh my God. If you would just not have your avocado toast, you could afford your rent.
That's exactly right. Or you can be in the Chaos Kids Club on the Patreon and listen to our bonus content. So that's that's my plug. That's my plug for the day. Now I'm ready for you to share some horrific, tragic crime, because
Are you?
that's how we do here.
Yeah. All right, great. Oh, I had one more. Well, it's a brag, but I'm living vicariously through somebody else.
Oh, I love that.
I'm going to call it mine.
I mean, I love that for you. Someone else in my life does that with me, and I don't love that for me. But go ahead. You go.
Yeah. No, people do that to me too. And I'm like, don't put me on that pedestal. Walk a day in my shoes and you'll be like, never mind.
Mhm.
Well, normally right at this moment, I would be at band practice, but our dear cousin / audio engineer / record producing aficionado is currently in a audio engineering program with the University of Washington. And we had to cancel practice today because he has a field trip at London Bridge Studios.
Oh.
And I've been getting pictures from him all morning. He's like, no big deal. I'm just standing in the vocal booth where Eddie Vedder recorded 10.
Wow.
And no big deal. I just listened to the raw cut of Alice in Chains, and now I'm listening to the raw cut of Macklemore. And here's the mixing board where they did Soundgarden.
That's incredible.
All these pictures and albums on the wall, and I fucking love it for him so much.
How fun.
I
That's fucking
know.
cool.
I know.
I
It's so
love
cool.
that.
So fucking cool. I had no idea that was over on Ballinger too.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
thought it would be like in downtown proper, but it's right around the corner, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's fucking
Ugh.
sweet. I love that for
Mhm.
Jeremy.
Mhm.
All right. So
Okay, now
now you can tell me some tragic, bummer, horrific story that is going to bring me down. I cannot
okay.
wait.
Okay, great. I'm going to take you back to April 5th of 1984.
1984. Okay. All
You were
right.
6 and I was 4.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good year. And we're in Pleasanton, California.
Oh, that's lovely.
Well, yeah, it starts that way.
Mm-hmm.
So Drew Faelz says that he remembers that day really well because he got home from school and his older sister Tina wasn't there. And every day, Tina would get home from school before Drew because she was in high school, and she would look after him and help him with his homework until their mom got home.
Sure.
So another hour goes by.
Little classic 80s latchkey action.
Totally. Yep. The blind leading the blind.
That's right.
We're very familiar with that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another hour goes by and Tina's still not home. And Drew doesn't learn until the next day from his parents that Tina had been killed.
I'm sorry, they just didn't tell him.
Well,
how old was he? He was in elementary school. So he was like 11 or younger, probably.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So police say that a truck driver on a freeway driving through Pleasanton looked over to his right off of the road into a drainage culvert, and he saw what looked like a person who was hurt. So he pulls over and walks down to the drainage ditch, and that's when he sees a large amount of blood and a body. Yeah. Officers respond, and they see, obviously, the body there, and then also there's a purse that's been like flung up into a tree.
Oh, this sounds vaguely familiar.
And inside the purse, they find a report card for Tina Faelz, a freshman at Foothill High School.
Mm.
Tina had been stabbed 44 times.
Oh my God.
I know. And the coroner had determined that she was still alive for the first 38.
Ugh.
I can't.
No.
I can't.
Ugh.
No. The coroner also noted that there were no markings on her body showing that the knife had a guard on it. So they suspected that whoever did this to Tina likely injured himself in the process.
Well, I mean, there's your small blessing, I suppose.
I suppose so. They do a grid search for the weapon, but they never find the knife. Okay. And of course, they say that in Pleasanton at this time, it's safe to leave your doors unlocked. This kind of thing never happens here.
Oh, right.
It's not safe to leave your doors unlocked anywhere. Can we all just agree on that?
I mean,
like they say that in every
place where there's people.
Every place. So, yes.
If there's people, it's probably not safe to do that.
Correct.
I mean, if it's just animals, probably safe. I think only Sasquatch. Well, no, you're right. Bears can get in. Remember? Yeah, it's of course. I forgot about the lady that was mauled in her own kitchen when that bear got in. So,
right.
Okay. People or bears or possibly Sasquatch, lock your doors.
Or raccoons because they have weird kid hands.
They do have. They do have weird little kid hands, don't they? They're kind of creepy.
Yes, they are.
What do you think these are for?
Don't like it. For turning doorknobs, obviously.
Okay.
So detectives go to Foothill High School and they start talking to students hoping to get a lead. And they learn that Tina was being bullied at school. And she used to ride the bus, but several of the girls who were bullying her and threatening to beat her up were also on that bus. So that's why she started walking home through the culvert. I know.
I feel like I have heard this story, but it's been a while because some of these little details are like ringing little distant bells. But, fuck, man.
Fuck. So the culvert was a swampy area that was pretty spooky, but it was a shortcut from the high school to her neighborhood.
It's always the goddamn shortcuts, dude. The shortcuts.
I know.
Yeah. Remember?
Just take the long way home.
What was her name? Ellie.
Yes.
Chemo, yeah.
Through
the shortcut that everybody took in the neighborhood. Yep.
Yeah. But this was also like in the afternoon,
Yes, I do
broad
know.
daylight.
Yep. Like after school, it's like 2:00 or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. So through this shortcut, there's a tunnel that you had to go through. And when you were at the halfway point of the tunnel, you couldn't see anything in front of you or behind you. It was completely black.
Shit.
Uh-huh. And you could hear the cars on the freeway above, but if you screamed for help, nobody was going to hear you.
Right.
Ooh. Yeah. So on this day, the mean girls were throwing rocks at Tina, and one of them said, "Let's tie Tina to a tree and stab her."
Oh, so it's going to be one of those stories. Oh, you're going right into my wheelhouse, the fucking psychotic teenage fucking horror show.
Well, I just point that out to say that goes way beyond just bullying.
That's what I'm saying. Those fucking teenage group psycho scenarios. Like, what the fuck is that?
I don't know, but that's why on this particular day, Tina was like, hell to the no, I'm walking. So these girls were questioned, but it just so happened that on the day that Tina was killed, the girls stayed after school for detention. So they are ruled out.
Of course, they were all in detention together.
Yeah, in detention because, they tied someone else to a tree and tried to, I mean, what the
God.
fuck?
These girls sound awful.
Oh, yeah. Fuck. Oh my God. Also, like, yeah, it even in which I'm sure I've bullied somebody in my life or been unkind, as we all have, but never would words come out of my mouth about stabbing somebody.
Right.
Like, what is wrong?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I can't even wrap my head around it because it's crazy pants.
Either.
I mean, we've talked about this, right? We talked about this when you're like, in that teenage years where you're like in cars with people that are like suggesting that you go do crazy things. First of all, no one ever suggested in any of my crazy romps at night in cars with other teenagers. What never once was like murder on the table, first of all. But second of all, if it was, I would be piecing the fuck out of there as soon as I possibly could. I was not going to be a part of that. Like, I don't understand.
Peer pressure will only take you so far.
That's what I'm saying. Then psychopathy takes you the rest of the way. You know what I mean?
Yes. We have taken a dark turn somewhere if you're fucking still on board when murder's on the table.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. And you keep saying these girls, like it's a group of them or something. Is it like
two?
That
was what
is it 3? Is it 4? Again, this is always blowing my mind. Like any more than 2 is like unimaginable to me. But like Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, so they were all in detention, so they had a fucking alibi.
Yeah. So shortly before 3 p.m., 2 students, Steve Carlson and Todd Smith, were in a car driving home from school. And Steve was like, "Oh, hey, there's Tina," as they saw her walking down the road toward the culvert.
Let's go tie her up and stab her.
No.
What's going on?
So he's telling officers this. And Steve also tells officers that he saw another student, Jeff Michelson, running through the drainage culvert right around the same time. So Michelson is now being looked at as a potential suspect.
Sure.
Investigators also learned that Tina's mom had a boyfriend who recently moved out named Keith Fitzwater. I hesitate to say this because I have a teenage daughter and a boyfriend, but why do I get the like, God, fucking mom's boyfriend?
I know,
the worst. Right?
I mean, there's lots of horrible tales that end with, and the boyfriend did it. You know what I mean? Like mom's boyfriend was doing some nasty shit. So I get it. But this is why men do not live in my house with me at this point. You know what I'm saying? They will not be. Nope.
Right. Well, I mean, technically your son is a man, but I do know what you mean.
Yeah. Technically is right.
So mom's boyfriend, Keith Fitzwater, he was asked to move out because he was causing tension in the family. And Drew says that he didn't like Keith at all. He was only 15 years, or Keith was 15 years younger than his mom and in his early 20s at the time.
Oh.
So it's like you have teenagers.
Again, with the...
It just gets, yeah.
You know...
If your boyfriend is closer in age to your children than to you.
All I'm saying is that when I go on the dating app and some dude like sends me a like and he's got a 2 at the start of his age, like it is an automatic no. Like, I can't.
I know,
Nope.
right? No.
Nope. You're a baby.
I know.
You're a baby.
Ew,
And yes, you're closer in age to my child than you are to me. And that makes me feel weird.
Yep. And it should. Well, again, you haven't crossed the threshold.
I have not crossed the threshold.
Oh, well, it's okay. So he's 15 years younger than mom. He's a heavy drinker and he had a hot temper. And he had been violent toward Shirley, Tina and Drew's mom. Just days before Tina's murder, Tina was yelling at Keith to leave her mom alone while he was in one of his rages. And he moved out.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now the police have 2 suspects they want to investigate further, Keith Fitzwater and Michael Jefferson. And when police look into Jeff Michelson. That's so funny. I transposed it. The 2 first names.
The 2 first names. Jeff Michelson.
I knew of a guy named Harry once, and I had questions. Yep.
I have questions and I have notes.
Did your parents cross the threshold?
That's what is going on? Okay. Jeff.
Jeff, when police look into Jeff, they learn that he was a bully and that he liked to pick on smaller kids. Cool. According to witnesses on the day of Tina's murder, Jeff grabbed Steve Carlson, the one who saw Tina when he was driving by in the car.
Right.
And threw him into a dumpster.
This is very never-ending story.
Yeah, and then his luck dragon came along and he fucked Carlson or Jeff up big time. Yeah. He went on to regret that choice.
Fucking wish. I wish that happened.
No, he threw him in a dumpster and locked the dumpster, and Steve was in there for about 10 minutes before a teacher let him out.
Oh, for God's sake.
I mean,
look, the 80s was a different time.
And we're blaming this on the 80s.
I mean, it wasn't helping.
No, it wasn't.
We were all pretty feral back then, so.
Yeah.
Left to our own devices.
Dumpsters and whatnot. So investigators also learned that there were several instances of Jeff grabbing and groping girls at school.
Fucking gross.
Yep. And he also carried a hunting style knife that he carried in a sheath that he wore on his belt.
Fucking douchebag.
Fuck right off. I know.
Fucking douchebag.
Such a douche. So investigators interview him and they notice that he has a cut on his index finger. And he tells investigators that he cut his finger at work. Mm-hmm. But he also provided 2 different stories of how he cut it at work.
Right.
And they asked him if he told his boss that he had been injured at work. And he was like, no, because I didn't think it was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Okay.
Yeah. So officers get a search warrant for his house. And in his house, they found 2 hunting knives. And the knives are sent off to a crime lab and examined for traces of blood. And they were both found to be clean.
Okay.
So then detectives move on to Keith Fitzwater and ask him where he was the day of the murder. Keith says that he was at work and that he had his boss drop him off at Shirley's house after he learned that Tina was missing.
Okay. Oh, he's in his 20s, doesn't have a car. Dates a single mom with 2 kids closer to his age than she is. Okay.
Yeah.
Winning.
So he gets dropped off at Shirley's house. They also learn from his boss that Keith had a knife that he regularly carried. And before getting out of his car that day, Keith handed his knife to his boss and said that he didn't want to go into a house with a knife and asked his boss to keep it for him.
Okay, that's not suspicious at all. Totally normal behavior.
So police send his knife off to the crime lab and it comes back with no traces of blood.
Okay. Okay.
Then about 21 days, actually 21 days after Tina's murder.
Exactly
I'm like,
21
on
days.
April 26th, that's
21 days.
In Felton, California, a young woman is sexually assaulted by a man named Walter Nyman. Walter was on a bridge, and a 17-year-old girl was walking home from school. She was able to get away from Nyman, and he was later arrested in Felton for attempted rape and assault. And at the time of Tina's murder, Felton lived in Pleasanton.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So they go to Grandma's house, who he's very close with.
Okay.
And Grandma says that she remembers April 5th very specifically because that was the day that Walter showed up at her house. Grandma said that when he showed up, he seemed very flustered and out of sorts, and he was saying that he wanted to get out of Pleasanton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does he have any knives?
I don't know. He assaulted somebody. I would assume that he had some sort of weapon, but no knives, I don't think.
Okay.
Oh, actually, just kidding. Let me get to my next sentence. Jesus, you know what? This is what happens when I'm too on top of things because I wrote this story like a week and a half ago.
Oh my God. Now you're making me feel okay. I'm not even going to say it. Keep going.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. On April 28th, police get a search warrant for Walter Nyman's house, and they found 2 bloody knives and bloody clothing. These items are sent off to the lab, and it is determined that the blood on the clothing and the knives was animal blood.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Is he? Okay.
He's hunting. I don't fucking know.
I mean, I hope that we hope that's what it is. Otherwise, who knows what he's out there doing to animals?
Oh God.
I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Tina's mom, Shirley, is really unraveling. Her mental health is really bad. She regularly brings information to the police that she thinks might be of use. And one day she is reading the newspaper and she sees a picture of Michael Ide. He was in prison in Washington State and used to live in Pleasanton. And he was in prison for killing a young woman around the time of Tina's murder. And Shirley believes that she recognizes him. And so she starts sort of frantically sifting through old photos. And she finds a photo of herself who she believes is this Michael Ide when they met at a barbecue.
Oh. That's okay. Get it? You know what? Fucking investigation mom. Like, yeah.
I know. Yeah, exactly. So she brings the photo to the police department. Detectives interview the friends that introduced Shirley and the man in the picture, and they all tell detectives that is not Michael Ide.
Oh. So
leads run out and the case goes cold. And Drew said that his mom slowly just deteriorated mentally. She eliminated friends. Drew had to regularly call the crisis line to have someone come and pick her up and take her for an involuntary commitment.
72-hour hold. Yeah.
Yeah. So in February of 2008, 24 years after Tina's murder.
Oh my God.
Detective. You know what, too? Okay. Maybe
I knew it. As soon as you said it was going cold, I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those.
And every time, well, not every time, but oftentimes it is like a badass female detective.
Mm.
And I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
So in comes Detective Dana Savage. She's
Savage? Fuck
yeah, she's
yes.
fucking savage. Yep. She's pregnant with her second child, and so she's been assigned to office duty. So she starts going through cold cases, and she comes across Tina's case.
Okay.
And what stood out to her were the other killings that were happening in that area during that time. In November of 1984, Lisa Monza is killed, and it's determined that Michael Ide was responsible. That's the dude in prison in Washington.
Yeah.
Yep. In December of 83, Kelly Poppleton was murdered, and it's eventually determined that Robert Rhodes was the killer. And in 89, James DiVaggio and his girlfriend, Michelle Machad, kidnapped Vanessa Sampson off the street in Pleasanton. They sexually tortured her in a chamber that they had made in the back of their van.
Oh my God.
They had Vanessa tied up. They sexually assaulted her several times before driving her to Tahoe, strangling her, and leaving her in a snowbank.
Jesus. Pleasanton is a place where you can keep your doors unlocked, though.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, don't let the name deceive. There's nothing pleasant about Pleasanton in the 80s, it
Oh my
sounds like.
God.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So Detective Dana Savage also learns that James DeVeggio went to Foothill High School. He's the one that with his girlfriend in the torture van.
Okay.
And she desperately wants to interview him. He's currently in prison, but because she's pregnant, she had to hand that interview off to another detective that could go. So Lieutenant Davis interviews DeVeggio in prison, and DeVeggio says, I'm already in prison for the rest of my life, and I have nothing to lose. If I was involved in Tina's murder, I would tell you. He says that he is not involved, and he points the finger back at Walter Neiman, the guy that had animal blood and sexually assaulted the other teenager.
Oh, okay.
He,
how would
he
he
was
know? Because he knows
I
Walter?
don't know.
Are they all friends? Are all these psychopaths friends? What's going on?
I think there's a club. I think there's a club happening. I have no idea. So, Detective Savage is convinced that one of these three is responsible for Tina's murder, but she has no evidence. So she starts sifting through the several thousands of pages in the evidence box again. And she reads the coroner's report and learns that there was no guard on the knife and that it's very possible that the killer cut himself, leaving DNA somewhere. But she needs to know what the suspect might have touched. And she's looking and looking and looking through the evidence photos. And that's when she sees the photo of Tina's purse up in the tree.
Oh, God damn. She is savage. Oh, I love her.
Yeah.
He threw it up there.
Yes.
He touched that fucking purse.
Oh
my God.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep. So she hands over the purse to the FBI for DNA testing. On March 14th, 2011, 27 years after Tina's murder, Dana is at home on maternity leave when she gets a call from the FBI. They did find 4 drops of the suspect's blood on Tina's purse.
Oh my God.
And they knew who killed Tina.
No.
And she said they called and they were like, do you want to know? And she's like, yes, what the fuck?
What do you mean, do I want to know? The question is, when the FBI being all cheeky and coy, do you want to know?
I know.
Fuck?
Right off. She is prepared for them to either say Walter Neiman or James DeVeggio. But the killer was Steve Carlson, the student who was thrown in the dumpster.
Oh my God, that is the most insane plot twist you've ever thrown at me.
Plot twist. Yeah.
The one who said, I saw her.
Oh, look, there's Tina. Yeah.
And he just spent the last 27 years scot fucking free. Doing God knows what.
Oh, yeah. So, Steve Carlson had told the officers that he saw Jeff Michelson near the culvert on that day to steer the investigation in the wrong direction.
Obviously.
At the time, Steve was 16 and Tina was 14. So they go back through the evidence with this new perspective. And after getting out of the dumpster, Steven is covered in garbage and he's fucking pissed and humiliated. So he goes home and he gets his mom's car and he starts driving around the neighborhood. At the time, Steven told detectives that he was with his friend Todd Smith in the car, but Todd said he was never with Steven that day. Steven also said that he saw Tina walking towards the culvert, and it is believed that since Steven was already so fucking pissed off, he pulled over and followed Tina down to the culvert.
And took it out on her.
Yes.
Another bullied student.
Yep. And Dana suspects that the purse was left in the tree to mark the spot because from Steven's house, you get a clear view of the culvert when you sit on the roof.
So he'd be able to see exactly where she was.
Yeah.
By the purse.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's spooky.
What the fuck?
I don't know.
How did they know it was him? Did they have his DNA on file? Was he already?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
So on July 26, 2011, Steve Carlson was in county jail on an unrelated drug charge. He had been arrested several times over the years for drug charges and a sexual assault in Sacramento. So investigators go to the Santa Cruz jail to interview Steven. And investigators had to stop the interview short because as soon as they brought up the reason for their visit, he became violently ill and was throwing up in a garbage can in the room.
Oh, okay.
And this was on, it's, bye.
What's happening?
This is being, well, I don't know. It was being recorded. You could see.
Oh, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they had to cut it short. So 2 weeks later, he's set to be released on his drug charges. So they go back to the jail. And as he's being released, they arrest him for the murder of Tina.
Oh my God.
Which that's kind of lame. Like that. This is also on, I mean, it's not lame, but this is also on footage where he's like walking out and he doesn't even get out the door and he's arrested again, you know?
Yeah. I mean, cops are going to cop, you know?
I know. So in 2014, Carlson was found guilty of second-degree murder and was sentenced to 15 years to life. And on the day before the trial, Tina's mom, Shirley, died of a massive heart attack.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm. Steve Carlson wrote 3 letters as he approached his first parole hearing, admitting guilt. And he said, quote, "I want you to know you and your family did absolutely nothing to deserve what I did to you." The letters shared with the San Francisco Chronicle and published, published in the paper went on to say that he was acting out of rage from being bullied. It's another girl that the whole reason she is walking home is because she's been bullied.
That's what I'm saying.
What the fuck?
Did we talk about this? I think we talked about this a while ago on one of the long ago episodes about somebody mentioning somewhere in the interwebs, in my travels across the interwebs, the notion of bullying being relabeled peer abuse.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's like, that just, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. It's fucking awful.
The whole story is just,
mm-hmm.
He did not have a luck dragon that just scared the pants off his bullies.
No,
he turned around and took that bully energy and became a fucking murderer.
I know.
What the fuck, man?
I don't know. It's fucking disgusting. It's horrible. I feel terrible for Tina's mom and her brother. It's just awful. Awful.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
As we like to say around here. Thank you for that. Can I have another?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got some fucking chaos?
I have some fucking chaos. And I don't know if you've ever heard this before. This is one of those like mysteries, not mysteries of the unknown. I don't think that. Well, I was
like, are you already reading?
No, but I might be prepared. I very well might. Let's get nerdy on lighthouses.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
So most of us know the purpose of a lighthouse. Primarily, they have 2 purposes, right? To warn of danger from a spot that sailors can see from a safe distance, day or night, and to guide ships into harbors or anchorages, right? Those are like the 2 reasons that a lighthouse exists. Most lighthouses have been rendered obsolete in the modern era. Ships have tech on board that makes them basically superfluous. I mean, there's like GPS and LiNAR, all these different technologies, right, that help them steer and be safe and get where they need to go without needing lighthouses to look at, right? In the late 20th century, a bunch of lighthouse preservation societies popped up in the States to save them as they were being shut down, right? There's like a real, I don't know, kind of romantic nostalgia around lighthouses, right?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. And as early as the 1850s in France, lighthouses were being upgraded to electricity, although that didn't become economically and logistically feasible until about the 1920s to the 1930s in the US. But regardless, for a couple thousand years, give or take a few hundred years, lighthouses were solely lit by some kind of fire source, right? Wood,
right? And
then coal, candles, kerosene, paraffin, and the whole mechanism of the light itself at the top like evolved over time with the addition of a bunch of mirrors to better reflect the light and, you know, all that stuff. So for a really long time, lighthouses needed tenders, like keepers of the light, right?
Right.
Someone had to keep the fires burning. And for much of that time, they had to clean the mirrors and the windows like daily from all the soot created by whatever they were using to burn to create the light, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, you can picture a lighthouse. So many of them are built on these offshore islands out there in the ocean, right? And
Yeah.
it was in Britain at just such a lighthouse that an incident occurred in 1801 that changed one of the policies of the governing board of lighthouses. And yes, that is a
There's
thing.
a board.
There's a board.
Okay.
There is a governing board of lighthouses.
Mhm.
And this was at the Smalls Lighthouse, which was built on the largest of a group of rocks known as the Smalls. This was 20 miles west of Pembrokeshire, Wales, which is on the southwest coast of Britain, right between Britain and Ireland. It's the channel
Okay.
between them. And this is what happened there. Thomas Howell and Thomas Griffith were the two-person team that managed the lighthouse at the Smalls. And they were known to argue a lot, quite publicly. It was common knowledge. Well, Thomas Griffith died in a freak accident while they were both at the lighthouse tending, right? And Thomas Howell, he was afraid that if he threw Griffith's body into the sea, authorities might accuse him of murder. So Griffith's body is decomposing, and Howell builds a makeshift coffin for his corpse, and he secures it to a shelf outside of the lighthouse. Okay. But then like a storm comes through and big gusts of wind are blowing and they blow the box apart, and the body's arm falls within view of one of the windows of the living quarters. And as the winds would blow and gusts would catch the arm and move it in a way that made it look like it was like beckoning to Howell.
I hold on. I have some questions. Why is a person's corpse still at work? Like, where's his family?
What
do you mean?
They're on the island at the lighthouse. They can't leave.
They just exist there forever. They don't
no.
go
And
home?
I'll get into it a little bit more when we get farther into the story, but they do these like weeks-long shifts together.
Like firefighters.
Kind of, but they're on an island, and the only way to get there and back is when the ship comes in.
I see. Okay.
Right? So he's waiting it out for the ship to show up. In the meantime, his partner is dead. Now his partner's dead body is hanging on the side of the building outside, and the arm is like waving at him in the window. So,
oh no.
So Howell is able to keep the lighthouse lamp lit, even though he was working alone and kind of losing his mind. And then when Howell was finally relieved of duty, he was so affected by it all that his friends didn't recognize him. Like, he was haunted by this.
Oh, yeah.
And that is when the governing board decided that these lighthouses needed 3 men on duty at any given time instead of just 2. Okay. Side note, there's this movie that came out in 2019 called The Lighthouse, and it stars Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. And it's partially based on this story. Have you seen this or heard of this movie?
No.
It's kind of crazy pants. It's all in black and white. It's very like mostly psychological thriller, weird, like what's going on kind of a thing. And their characters are really strange, but there's also like this whole kind of like hallucinatory scene where Robert Pattinson is like out on the like outside on the rocks and in the rain, and there's like a creepy weird mermaid lady, and there's literally a shot of like like mermaid like labia. It's a whole thing. Like, it's so weird. It's weird.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah. Okay.
Edgar Allan Poe also has an unfinished story that is also called The Lighthouse, and that movie with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson was inspired by Poe's story, but when one of the screenwriters got stuck, his co-writer, who is also his brother, used the Smalls lighthouse events to inspire the rest to finish the script. So like lighthouses are just kind of innately spooky. There's this romantic, but also kind of like gothic and kind of creepy. It's a isolated thing. Like when you're tending, right? Even when you have like 1 or 2 people with you, you're usually isolated. Like the weather can be gnarly. You're next to the ocean, which is also like its own thing, right? So there's just this whole aura about all of it. Okay.
Totally. Yeah.
But the story I really want to tell you happens 100 years after the Smalls Lighthouse tragedy in the Flannan Isles off the west coast of Scotland. Have you ever heard of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse mystery?
No.
Okay. So the lighthouse itself was built between 1895 and 1899. It took that long to build it. It was like twice as long as they had planned. The weather was really shitty. It's really hard, rough terrain to build on. And it was first lit on the 7th of December in 1899. So it was built on the largest of the Rocky Islands the Rocky Island kind of archipelago is called the Flannan Isles. The largest of those is called Eileen Moor. And the island itself is mostly just like a craggy, looming rock formation with a grassy plateau on top. It's basically like sheer cliffs around the entire thing. And at the lowest is like 100 feet straight up or higher. These cliffs come out of the ocean. The highest point on the island itself is around 300 feet.
Jeez.
So when they built the whole lighthouse compound, it included 2 landing places in different spots, right, on the island. One was like in the south and one was in the east, I think. I can't remember. So there was 2 places that boats could land to get to the island.
Okay.
Which is probably so that they could be reached from more than one approach, maybe, depending on weather or where the boat was coming from.
Uh-huh.
And then from those landings, there are like these precariously small like stairs built into the sides of the cliffs. And then at the top there began from both landings railway tracks. So there was a cable hauled railway coming up from each of the landings that then met at a Y point and continued up to the building complex. And the lighthouse and the living quarters, like probably a storage house or a shed. So the railway would be used to haul the big boxes of provisions for the tenders and the fuel to keep the lighthouse lit, right? Because like all they had were these tiny little built into the side of a cliff like staircases. So I think what they do is they would like haul the big boxes of provisions like off the rowboat or whatever, put it onto the landing. Then they would like lash ropes around it, go up, like pull the box of provisions up, put it on a little car on the little railway, right? And then hand crank this pulley system railway to like move those boxes farther up into the actual lighthouse, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's very like, well thought out and practical.
Mm-hmm.
So the tenders would spend a rotation, if you will, living and tending to the lighthouse. There were 4 tenders that would do a rotation of 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So there would be 3 tenders at the lighthouse at any given time and 1 on the mainland doing his 2-week break.
Okay.
But before there was a lighthouse built on the Flannan Isles, people did go out to these isles, Eileen Moor specifically. People would take their sheep out there to graze, and others would go collecting eggs from the nests of the birds that lived on the isles.
Okay.
And there was a lot of local lore about the isles being mystical, like home to fairy folk and nature spirits, not all of which were good. And in fact, those that made it safely to the isle would immediately, like after getting off the boat, uncover their head completely, do a full turn clockwise, and then thank God for their safety.
What? For arriving safely?
Yeah. Like, superstitious stuff, right?
Okay. Interesting.
It's like doing the sign of the cross or something on your...
Sure. Okay. And it was known that that's what you do when you got there.
known that that's what you do. That's exactly right. So it was just over a year later, after the lighthouse was first lit, when the first signs that something was amiss at the Flannan Isle Lighthouse would be noticed. And a bunch of people on the mainland would nod their heads and say, "I told you so."
Ooh.
So at that time, the lighthouse tenders were principal keeper James Ducat, who was 43 years old, married with 4 kids, and had over 20 years of experience as a lighthouse keeper.
Wow.
His first assistant keeper, William Ross, had left sick, and Joseph Moore was not due to return because he was on his 2-week break.
Mm-hmm.
So Ross was replaced by 40-year-old occasional keeper and ex-soldier Donald MacArthur, who was also married with children. And the third tender on duty was second assistant keeper Thomas Marshall.
Okay.
Okay. On the 15th of December, 1900, a transatlantic ship coming from Philly heading to Leith named the Archtor passed the lighthouse in kind of shitty weather, and the light was out.
Oh.
So when they get to port 3 days later, they made sure to let the lighthouse board know, like, hey, there was no light on at the Flannan Isle Lighthouse.
Right.
So the lighthouse board wants to send out, send out the relief tender ship and see what the fuck is up, right? And it leaves later than they wanted it to, because it should have sailed out there on the 20th, but the weather was fucked, so it didn't make it out. Didn't actually make it out to the lighthouse until the 26th. That's 11 days after the Archtor sailed by and saw that the light was out.
Wow. Okay. Shit.
And Joseph Moore, who had not been well and was waiting out his 2 weeks, whatever had been sent, right? He was scheduled to start his shift that day on the 26th. And so he was on that boat. It was regular practice for the keepers on the island to raise a flag in preparation for the changing of the shift. But the captain of the tender, relief ship or whatever, could see no sign of the flag. And he was kind of like, where's the flag? Right? Like, they're supposed to basically like raise a flag that's like, we know you're coming.
Oh.
We're ready to change shifts, right?
Okay. Yeah. They've got this whole system.
They have a whole system. This is all very, safety oriented. He was even more alarmed when several horn blasts from the ship was met with nothing.
Oh.
No light keepers were to be seen anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Then he fired a stress rocket, is what it's called. I think it must be something like a flare, right?
Okay.
Like,
I like stress rocket.
Yeah, stress rocket. I'm kind of a stress rocket sometimes.
I know.
Myself. Bit of a stress rocket myself. And still nothing. No light keepers anywhere. So the captain sends Joseph Moore down in the rowboat to row to the landing and go investigate. So Moore climbed the stairs, and once at the top of the stairs, at the top of the cliffs, he yelled out for the three men, and there was no reply. He made his way up and into the lighthouse and the quarters there, and what he found was an empty, spotlessly clean living quarters and a cold hearth.
What?
Everything was in perfect order. The only thing that was missing was the three men. And one last thing, every clock in the building had stopped.
What? Oh, I just got chills.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that.
Mm-hmm.
Ew.
Moore heads back down to the landing, and he requests some backup. Two men head back up with him, and they all search some more, but they find no one and no clues.
What?
They go back to the rowboat and row out to the ship. The captain wants to make sure that the light is actually tended to. I mean, it's dangerous if it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's never supposed to go out, right? So he orders Moore to go back along with 3 volunteers to get that lighthouse lit back up. And the captain sets course for the mainland. And while he's on his way, he sends a telegram to the Northern Lighthouse Board. And it said, quote, "A dreadful accident has happened at the Flannans. The 3 keepers, Ducat, Marshall, and the Occasional, have disappeared from the island. The clocks were stopped, and other signs indicated that the accident must have happened about a week ago. Poor fellows, they must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane."
What? That's a big leap to make.
Right.
Okay.
The next day, Moore and his 3 volunteers started searching around again for clues or anything, and they finally did find something. They had made their way over to the other landing, and that's when they saw that some of the iron railings of the railway had been mangled and ripped from their foundation, and a box full of ropes was missing, despite having been firmly wedged into a crevice and then anchored there.
Huh. Okay.
Another strange detail, one of the 3 men's jackets was still hanging in the living quarters while the other 2 were not. meaning that if there had been some freak storm, for example, that sent the men out to do something at the landing, one of them had rushed out without putting on any kind of coat at all. Like, what could possibly have happened that sent one of the men running out into such severe weather without grabbing his jacket?
No shit.
So the Lighthouse Board sends someone out to investigate further, and this guy concludes that there was a big giant storm around the time the men would have gone missing, and that must have been what got them. There was a big buoy that was usually tied to one of the railings, 110 feet up, that was missing. A large block of stone weighing nearly a ton had been dislodged and sent over the cliff to the path below.
Dislodged? What?
Yeah.
Okay, this is so fucking weird. Okay.
The board investigator concluded that a giant wave must have hit the isle and swept all 3 men away. The report was submitted a few weeks later, and the case was officially closed. Rumors abound around this whole case. People say that there were weird entries in the logbook leading up to the day the men went missing that made them sound like they were slowly going mad or something.
Really?
And look, this is not unheard of, right? Like, there is real evidence and other incidences throughout, over time where, like, crazy pants shit has gone down because people have lost their minds, like being isolated at a lighthouse. But this specific rumor was debunked by a journalist who discovered that these supposed logbook entries were completely fabricated years after the men disappeared.
That also seems more plausible if it was one person.
Right.
Like, not all 3 of them losing their minds together. I don't know.
It's possible, like, one of them. Okay, so like one of the theories is, okay, what if one of them lost their mind, murdered the other 2, and then like the murderer like threw himself into the ocean?
Okay.
Sure. Of course, the more superstitious types offered up other explanations such as sea monsters, ghost ships, and straight up aliens stealing the men away.
Sea monsters.
But this is where it does stay weird, because the official report claims that for whatever reason, all 3 men were standing at the top of the cliff above the landing, over 100 feet above the water, and a giant ass wave caused by a giant ass storm swept all 3 of them into the sea.
Right. Why would they be standing out there?
At the time, people were hard pressed to believe a wave that size was even possible. So we're going to wander a little here. On January 1st, 1995, measuring equipment on an oil rig just off the coast of Norway recorded what is now considered the first official evidence of a freak wave. I think some also call them rogue waves. It was 61 feet at its peak.
Shit.
In 2013, Keith McCloskey, an author and a historian, with the help of a meteorologist, decided to do his own research on this spooky lighthouse mystery. He found that the weather at the time those 3 men disappeared wasn't great around then, but it wouldn't have been anything that the 3 experienced lighthouse keepers hadn't encountered before.
Right.
Wind speeds at that time were estimated to have peaked at roughly 60 miles an hour.
Okay.
Any waves generated by a storm with 60-mile-an-hour winds would barely have peaked at above 30 feet. And remember, the cliff top is well over 100 feet above sea level. And the largest freak wave ever recorded topped in at 95 feet. So if it was a freak wave, it would literally have been the largest ever known. And then, like,
wouldn't there be other evidence up there that happened? Like, of things looking awash, and you know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know. And then, like you said, there's the fact that all 3 men would have been out there at the same time in the first place. And here's where it gets even more unbelievable that would be true. Standard practice for lighthouse keeping was that the lighthouse would have never been left unattended. That's part of the reason why there's 3 people. There would be at least 1 man in there at all times tending to the lighthouse. And these were seasoned professionals who had been tending for many years. It's not like they didn't know that that was the rule.
Right. I mean, that's the whole reason why the substitute guy was out there.
That's exactly right.
Oh my God, this is weird.
It's also worth noting that there was the official report by the investigator, right? But no fatal accident report was filed for the death/disappearance of these 3 men, which would also be standard practice in this case.
Huh.
Adding to that weirdness, all the key documentation that contained the evidence of everything that happened on the island disappeared when that investigator left the island, leading some to conclude some kind of cover-up.
Huh. Why though? I mean, it's pirates.
Maybe. 4 years after the 3 men disappeared, the lighthouse keeper on Flannan Isles at that time was cleaning the glass casing of the light when he slipped and fell to his death. And right near...
fell over?
Yeah, I think he fell maybe down the whole fucking lighthouse. I don't know.
Fuck.
And when they were building the lighthouse, right before they finished construction on the lighthouse, the foreman of that construction team died unexpectedly. I don't know if an accident or a heart attack or whatever, on the island, on the job. So
Holy shit.
after this lighthouse keeper died 4 years later, that made 5 deaths in less than 5 years from the construction of the lighthouse.
Oh God, that thing is haunted or I don't know, cursed.
No other lighthouse in the UK has that kind of tragic death toll. Nobody comes close. None of the other ones even come close. So this only added more fuel to the superstitions surrounding Eileen Moore, right?
Yeah. I'm seeing another push pin on our tour travels.
But we will never really know what happened to those 3 men.
No.
It is
wild.
The Flannan Isle Lighthouse Mystery.
Fuck. What the fuck, sister?
There you go.
I hate it.
Spooky Yuki.
Spooky Yuki Yuki. Wowzers. That was great. Jeez, how weird. People don't just evaporate.
I know. It's weird, right? It's really weird.
Yeah. Ugh, I hate it. Thank you for that.
You are so welcome.
Oh, fuck. Well, do you have anything else for the good of the order?
I mean, just the usual. You guys go sign up for the Patreon so you can listen to our bonus content and follow us on all the socials, on the Facebook and the Instagram and the Twitters. And you can send Amber love letters and you can send me hate mail, but they have to go to the same address, crimewineandchaos@gmail.com. And you can follow me and see pictures of my gorgeous new set of books that my dear friend gifted to me. I am at Miss Nomers on the Twitter. So come follow me there. We'll have a good time. What about you? Anything?
Thank you to everybody who attended our live show at the Blue Moon.
We're preemptively thanking everyone since it hasn't actually happened yet.
Listen, I am confident that we will see some 3-dimensional chaos kids' faces. I am putting that out into the universe. It's going to be amazing.
It was amazing. I am here to tell you it was amazing. We were amazing, and so were the chaos kids.
Future us loved it. Thank you for that. Oh, man.
Oh, well, you know what, sister? Thanks for sharing your bummer story and listening to my chaos and everything in between. And man, that was just fucking chaotic.
Bye. Crime, Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at crimewineandchaos.com/Patreon. Cheers!
People or bears, or possibly Sasquatch, bring me down.